You ever stop to think about what really holds our world together? Well, this one comedy script has a crazy idea. It might just be liquids. So today, we're going to tear into this wonderfully absurd piece of writing, see what makes it tick, and find out what happens when you change just one tiny rule.
See, this whole story, it hangs on one massive reality-bending question. It wants us to imagine a world built on a single, completely impossible change. A world where every single thing we think of as a liquid
was suddenly solid. Yeah, the script just throws us right into the chaos from page 1. A guy tries to pour milk on his cereal, and this solid white brick just thuds into the bowl. Right away, something so familiar becomes completely, hilariously alien. And trust me, this one simple rule, it's about to break everything.
Okay, but wait, to really get why a solid brick of milk is genuinely funny and not just, weird, we kind of need the key. We need the secret decoder ring to unlock this script's whole style of humor. And it all comes down to one specific genre.
And that, my friends, is absurdist humor. Now, absurdism isn't just random nonsense for the sake of it. No. It's about setting up one completely wild rule, like all liquids are now solid, and then following that rule with an almost painfully logical consistency. So think of this definition as our official rulebook for the bonkers world we're about to dive into.
All right, so let's see what happens when this huge, crazy rule smashes into the smallest, most relatable parts of our lives. Because this is where the comedy really starts to hit home.
And here we go. This is a perfect example. The very first thing to break is just breakfast. And notice, the character isn't screaming or freaking out. He's just sighing and asking for tools, like this is a totally normal, if annoying, part of his morning.
That's the whole joke right there. It's the juxtaposition. You've got this super mundane daily ritual, eating cereal, and it's smashed right up against the need for a hammer and chisel. It's that clash between the ordinary and the completely extraordinary that gets that first big laugh.
But it doesn't just stop at our daily routines. The script takes it a step further, into something way more complex, our relationships. I mean, listen to this. John is trying to bring up this sweet, romantic memory, but the world's one rule just warps it into something, well, painful and ridiculous.
And what's so clever here is how the physical world starts to become a metaphor, right? The world has no liquids, no moisture. And surprise, surprise, their relationship feels just as dry and broken. What should have been a tender moment is now a dental injury. Ouch.
Okay, so we've seen our personal lives get totally fractured, but the script doesn't stop there. Oh no, it scales up. It starts aiming its absurd lens at the very pillars that hold up our society.
And it goes after the big ones. The script takes its one single rule and just systematically breaks the media. It breaks science, it breaks history, even basic economics. It shows how all these massive, complex systems we've built, they all depend on something as simple as flowing water.
First up, the media. Just listen to the tone here. The anchor is delivering this absolutely catastrophic, insane piece of news with that completely deadpan, emotionless voice we expect from a newscast. The satire isn't just about the swimmers. It's about how we calmly report on total disaster. And then it rewrites one of the most foundational stories in Western history. The Great Flood can't happen, obviously, so Noah's Ark becomes Noah's ATV. It's a hilarious update that, logically follows the world's #1 rule. And just like that, we pivot from the biblical to the brutally commercial. In the last scene, a bartender charges this absolutely astronomical price for a single beer. Does he explain why? Nope. But in a world this fundamentally broken, it honestly feels like the logical conclusion to inflation, doesn't it?
Putting these last two side by side really shows you the script's incredible range. It's amazing. It can make a joke about the very foundation of history and religion, and then, in the very next breath, make a joke about just buying a drink at a bar. The same absurd logic hits both the epic and the everyday.
So, we've looked at what the script is making fun of. But how is it doing it? How does it actually work? Let's pop the hood and look at the actual engine of the comedy here, the specific tools the writer is using. Okay, let's take the scientist Tom. He is a perfect send-up of scientific arrogance. First, he uses all this complicated jargon to make a simple problem sound profound. Then, he rebrands an absolute disaster as a success. He gives it a fancy new name, completely ignores the catastrophic reality he's caused, and then declares himself a genius. It's a perfect 5-step guide to self-delusion.
And then,
Just when his ego is at its peak, his colleague Trini walks in and delivers this perfect, devastatingly simple line that just completely punctures his entire grand delusion. It's the punchline that brings his whole tower of jargon crashing right down. See, Trini is playing a classic role in comedy here. She's the straight man. Her whole job is to be the one sane voice in a room full of madness. By just stating the simple, obvious truth, she makes everyone else's absurdity crystal clear. It's such a powerful comedic tool.
Now let's look at another tool, this time from the relationship scene. Barbara says this incredible line to John, and at first it almost sounds kind of poetic, kind of deep, but it's built on a really, really clever bit of wordplay.
The magic here is how she takes a super common cliché, a perfectly balanced relationship, and she just twists it. Just one word, and it becomes this anti-cliché. It reveals the bitter, cynical truth of their whole situation, but the cleverness of that twist, that's what makes it so funny.
So after all this chaos, the concussions, the quad bikes, the breakfast chisels, we have to ask the big question, right? So what? What is the ultimate point of creating a universe that is so bizarre and so completely illogical?
And really, this is the whole takeaway. This script isn't just about silly jokes. By taking away one simple, fundamental thing that we all completely take for granted, it shows us that everything, from our morning routine to the global economy to our oldest stories, it's all built on a foundation that is way, way more fragile than we ever imagined.
Which kind of leaves us with one final question to chew on. The script took away water and milk and wine, but what's the one liquid in your own life, and that could be literal or metaphorical, that you totally take for granted, whose absence would just shatter your reality? It's a fascinating thought. Thanks for joining me for this breakdown.